This is Unit 3 of my Entrepreneurship class, and this unit is all about market research and target markets. At the beginning of every one of my units, I have my students click on the link to the guided notes, which is there, as well as the notes in the slide deck, and this provides them an outlet to be able to follow along with everything that it is that I go through with the slides. And in this unit, the essential question is as follows: how do entrepreneurs understand customers and design products that meet real needs? By the end of this unit, my hope is that students will be able to identify target consumers, define a value proposition and business ideas based on customer needs. In all of my units that I am offering on Teachers Pay Teachers, the teacher can also find a lesson overview, what to expect with a pacing guide, teacher tips, and then any type of preparation that might be necessary. And it's also worth noting that this video that you're watching right here is available for all of the units in which I offer. In this unit, the agenda is as follows. We will cover customers, target market, value propositions, customer personas, market research, and idea refinement. We open by having students discuss why do some businesses succeed and others fail. And I always allude to hinting at understanding your customers. And then we transition by figuring out how to identify, understand, and research customers before launching a product. Successful businesses always start with the customer first because they solve real problems for real people at a price that people are willing to pay for. I have my students start to think about who is their target market. And I say their target market because if you are following along for the full semester, my students are picking a business that they pursue for the entire uh, series of months that we have for this. I teach this during second semester of the year. And with this business that they've chosen, they need to identify who is the target market, the target customer, the person that it is. If they were going to paint a picture of who it is that buys their product or service, this is who they are. So a target customer is the specific group of people a business is designed to serve. I have them answer the following key questions: who needs your product or service, who is most likely to buy it, and who benefits the most. To get students to start thinking about who these people are, I give them a few examples. A luxury watch brand probably has high income adults. Fitness app, likely health conscious teens or adults. A video game company, quite likely going to be teen gamers. A toy company, children, and also their parents. And that's an intentional segue with the toy company because I next have my students think about what their favorite childhood toy or product was, and most importantly, think about the why. I always ask and why because it just is so much more impactful than just having them say, I like Legos, right? Why did you like the Legos? And then once they've thought about that, I have them pair up with whoever is sitting next to them. I call it their elbow partner. And then I'll walk around the room, and while I'm listening to some of the feedback that I'm hearing, I will then uh, prompt a few students. If I like something that I heard, I'll say, hey, would you mind sharing that out vocally in front of the class? And more often than not, they'll say yes. So upon conclusion, students shared out what it is that was their favorite childhood toy or product. And this is always a crowd pleaser because it tends to be kind of nostalgic, and students are like, yeah, oh, I remember that. Fill in the blank, whatever it was. We then watch a video on Legos and their target customer. And all of this, again, is in the guided notes. So it's not like students are just sitting there and zoning out. They have work to be working on while we discuss this information. And I have them watch this video on the beginnings of Lego and where they are today, and pretty much all of the formation and changes and things that they've gone through. Now, for the next two slides, you have options. If you are a teacher out there that has Legos, then you would go with this slide here. You can see in that top right corner where it says option A if you have Legos. And if you do not have Legos, then you would go to option B, no materials needed. And I do that while I admittedly have two young children, not as young anymore as they used to be. So as a result, I have a bunch of Legos. And so the project, if I use option A, is as follows. As a group, build a product that solves a problem and be ready to explain. So this is the students coming up with a target market product. And then we kind of look at which one it is that'll end up being the best, most likely to solve a problem throughout the class. These are the criteria for us to make that determination. What problem it solves, who the target customer is, and why they would buy it. Now, if you do not have Legos, then the alternative would be, as a group, you'll still design a product that solves a problem, but instead of the Legos, you will draw and label your product and be ready to explain what problem does it solve, who is the target customer, and why they would buy it. And again, we also vote on the product that best solves a problem. Again, option B is the no materials required option, which gets us to start thinking about the value proposition. This is, by definition, a value proposition explains why a customer would choose your product over others. It's the competitive advantage. It's the thing that sets them apart from the competition. So in simple terms, what problem do you solve and why does it matter to your customer? Why did you choose your favorite childhood toy to list in our Think Pair Share from earlier instead of something else? This is kind of the idea that you want to be thinking about with your business, product, or service. Why are people going to choose your thing over somebody else's thing? For Lego's value proposition, for children, well, it's endless building possibilities. It's always something new to create. For parents, it encourages creativity and learning. It's fun without feeling like school. I then have my students think back to that business that they are working on and create their own value proposition. It's worth noting, if you are not following my full semester content, then I would have your students, and I would do this in every single unit that you pursue if you're teaching an entrepreneurship class, is have them pick a business that they're interested in, starting, probably not an existing business, and do all these same steps. The only difference is that mine do it for an entire semester with one business that they are pursuing. So really make sure that they choose something they enjoy. So, with the value proposition for their business, write a value proposition for your product and be ready to explain the following: what problem does your product solve? Who is your customer, that is the target customer, and why your product is valuable to them. Here's a sentence starter: our product helps so and so by so and so. I always encourage simple and clear statements. I walk through the room, listen to and observe student examples if time allows, which then brings us to the next piece, which is coming up with a customer persona. And this is that picture I was talking about. If I was going to illustrate the person that is the ideal client to buy my product or service, who is that person? Could I put a face to them? What kind of things did they wear? What are their hobbies? What are their interests? What is it that they like to do in their free time? So, by definition, a customer persona is a detailed profile of your ideal customer. In simple terms, who exactly is the person most likely to buy your product? Think about age, interests, habits, needs, and so many other things that you can quantify. I then give an example with a customer persona for a person named Maya Rodriguez. Maya is 17 years old, a 12th grade student interested in social media, fashion, music, shops. This student shops online, follows influencers. Needs are affordable but trendy products, and her goal is to express her style and stand out. I always have the student notice that this persona helps you visualize a real person as I'm talking about it out loud. My student then needs to come up with their own customer persona for their product or service. They need to be able to describe those same exact characteristics I just went through. And then in the guided notes, they draw a simple picture of their customer, or stick figure is fine. This isn't an art class, although I would always appreciate somebody spending a little more time on the output of this. And the goal is to visualize a real person. So the optional sentence starter: our ideal customer is, and then they describe them. My students then perform a little bit of market research. And so this is the process of gathering information about your target customer in order to better understand their needs, preferences, and buying habits. In simple terms, how do you know your customer actually exists and would buy your product? This is to connect to help their business idea succeed. I give them some simple examples like surveys or observing customer behavior and whatnot. I then will take an example business such as a local boba shop, and we'll do a market research protocol in a jigsaw so that we can get a ton of information researched in just a very short amount of time, instead of all my students doing the research on a boba shop for all six of these different questions. Instead, I give each table grouping one of these questions to quickly research, give them a few minutes to do so, and then we report back as a whole with the solutions to each of these questions. I can get a lot more done in a very short amount of time. Just to give them the example. So the scenario is this: the shop is launching a new specialty drink and wants to attract more teen customers. Your table group will analyze one question. I give them the question, and if I have more than six table groups, I'll usually do a repeat, or I'll come up with something on the fly. So, group one: where would you find the target customer? Group two: what problem or need does this business solve? Group three: who are the competitors? Group four: why would customers choose this shop over others? Group five: what age group is most likely to buy this product? Group six: what price range would customers expect? And on each of these, I would always have them answer and why. It's to get them to elaborate. It's not just a one or two word response. I want to hear at least like 30 seconds of a reply that is a professional of almost collegiate caliber type of response. Now that we've done that, we apply the same fundamental process to the market research to their own business. I have them ask those same exact types of questions so that at the end they can describe exactly who their target customer is. And then once we do that, we need to do a little bit of idea refinement, just like a real entrepreneur would. Now that you've practiced market research with the boba shop, it's time to refine your own product idea because we want to be evolving. We don't want to just stay stagnant with just some kind of a kind of straightforward type of one response or one target market or one value proposition, customer persona, or understanding of the market. We want to get some feedback. So the key question is this: how can I adjust my idea to better meet my customers' needs? And so at the end of the next set of things that are going to happen, my students will be able to share that they refined their idea by doing the following. And here's what the next step is: it's time to enter the tank. I have my students quickly think about the show Shark Tank. Now that they've refined their product idea using some target customers because they knew who their customer is as well as what their product or service is, now they can come up with they are also have their value proposition, customer personas, and market research. It's time to turn the idea into a business pitch. In the next activity, my group will, or your groups in the classroom will create and present a product pitch. We watch a quick Shark Tank episode. This has 3 different episodes built into one where it's like the best practices of the Shark Tank. I usually watch the first one or the second one. I find that my students' attention span tends to dwindle off after one of them. Admittedly, they're about 8 to 10 minutes long. I usually shoot for about 4 minutes to keep that attention span. But because it's kind of a high paced, high energy show, students usually do tend to pay attention. So as they watch, I have them watch this and type in their guided notes again. How do the entrepreneurs explain their problem? How do they present their solution? And what makes the pitch persuasive? While they are watching, they have to jot down one thing that the entrepreneur did well. And this is kind of the springboard as I begin to describe what the big project of this unit is. And the big project of this unit is what I call the Guppy Tank project product pitch. And I call it the Guppy Tank because I used to have my students walk down to the elementary school and present to the fifth graders there. As a quick side note, my wife is a fifth grade teacher at the local elementary school. And so it is also worth noting that if you're a teacher out there looking for a wow your administrators type of project that is project based learning as well as great for a observation, this is the one. So your team will create and present a product or service pitch, and then just like in Shark Tank, you need to identify a problem, create a solution, define your target customer, explain why your product is valuable. Your goal is to convince the class that your idea deserves to swim in the tank. I tell them what the project steps are, and then I tell them the requirements on the next slide. If you don't have access to going to your local elementary school, that totally works. And you can possibly bring in other teachers on their prep period if they're interested in entertaining that. You could bring in some real world professionals from the working environment in the local area and maybe not title it Guppy Tank and maybe make it just Shark Tank or some variation of that. And then I provide them with the Guppy Tank pitch requirements. They must present what is the problem, the solution, their target customer, value proposition, market research, and the pitch with the goal of convincing the judges that their idea deserves to swim in the tank. And what I mean by swim in the tank is that it would be the one that would receive some type of investor support of providing them with a monetary contribution to get them up and running. I give them some tips. These are pitch presentation tips. As they prepare, I want to make sure that they start with a clear problem, they explain their solution simply, identify their target customer, show why their idea is valuable, speak clearly and confident. I'm okay with note cards in my class. I would rather that than kids holding a cell phone to read off. I don't allow that, nor do we have cell phones in my classes. Make eye contact with the audience, use visuals or drawings when helpful, stay within the time limit, and a structured close. I always have them close out with something like that concludes our presentation, because there's nothing worse than a beautiful, eloquent presentation that finishes with, yeah, that's it. No, that concludes our presentation. I then give them some target market facts to create a snapshot of their target customer. So who is their target customer? In my case, if it's fifth graders, that's who their target customer is. With the Guppy Tank pitch day, I then give them what to expect. I share that their team will present their product or service pitch to the class, just like Shark Tank, with the goal to convince the judges that your idea deserves to swim in the tank. The audience must remain respectful, and then I provide you with a rubric right here. I appreciate you using this resource. If you found some value in it, I would love your feedback. You can also find me on a variety of other social media platforms, but primarily here on YouTube. That bell right there signals that my lunch is over and I've got to get back to teaching. So appreciate you. And in my opinion, you are teaching the most valuable class on campus.